Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Silver Spring. My name is Preston Mears, and I am this morning's worship associate, and my pronouns are he and his. I'd like to welcome all guests or visitors in the congregation today. Jim Street is our welcoming captain today. Jim, wave your hands, good. Jim is here to answer your questions about our congregation. Today marks the beginning of a new Sunday morning schedule here at our church. Earlier this morning at 9:30, we had our first religious education classes of the year. Yeah! Today in worship, we will consider how every aspect of our community helps people of all ages learn and grow in faith and spirit. After the prayer about halfway through the service, the children will have the option to leave the sanctuary and go to the chapel until the end of the service. They will be supervised by volunteers, but parents and other grown-ups are welcome to go with the kids if you wish. Babies and young children are always welcome in the sanctuary during the service. I can make more noise than them. But we also have a nursery for children 6 months and older through age 5. If you need help finding the nursery, please let one of the greeters in the back of the sanctuary know, and they will take you there. All children, whether in the nursery or elsewhere, need to be picked up by their grown-ups by 11:45. Each Sunday, we broadcast this service live on Zoom for those who are not able to join us in person. And we take a moment to greet everyone joining us in community. And we will begin by greeting those on Zoom. Everyone here in the sanctuary, please turn to the camera to your right and wave to those joining us virtually. It's so good to be together in community. Now, if you're joining us today by Zoom, it's your turn. So please turn your camera on and wave so those in the sanctuary can see you on the screen. Yay! Thank you. When the music starts, it's time to come back to your seat. I'm sorry. See, I made my first mistake. I'm an expert at making mistakes, trust me. Now we'll take a moment. Wait a minute. Come on, Preston. When the music starts, everyone here in the sanctuary should take time to greet one another. And when the music starts, it's time to come back to your seat and sing the opening hymn. So, greet. Hello.
You ready? Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. The day will be a joyful ears. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be our joyful day. And we'll rejoice and commune. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice. Enter, rejoice, and commune. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Now enter. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Our opening words today are adapted from words by Jason Cook. We seekers are on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we found it wrapped up, glittering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. All the answers right here for us and others, if they'd only listen. But truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of or decided was only for others, but not for us, can be our teacher. May our worship today reawaken us to the never-ending journey towards truth and meaning. Good morning, all. My name is the Reverend Caitlin Cotter Coillberg, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am the new Assistant Minister for Spiritual Growth of this congregation. So it's now time to light our flaming chalice, symbol of our free faith, and reaffirm our congregational commitment. I invite you to rise in body, voice, or spirit for this moment. So please join me in saying the words. Oh, do we have the words on the screen?
They don't.
There we go. Oh, almost. One slide back. There we go. May this light warm our hearts with love and caring and guide us in the way of truth. And now, as we gather here for worship, we pledge ourselves to the endless search for truth, to the right of each to believe as mind, heart, and conscience dictate, to accept the responsibilities this freedom commands, and to implement our belief in the essential worth and dignity of every human being. And I invite you to sit as we sing our Chalice Song. So Michael's gonna lead us in our chalice lighting song.
Fragile, full of
back to the previous slide.
Kindle a spark, fragile, full of love. Hold it in your hand, hold it in your heart.
Beautiful, getting more beautiful all the time. So, today it is my great honor to say a few words of celebration for our dear Phyllis Stanley, who this month begins her 30th year as staff accompanist and pianist at UUCSS. Before I started this job as music director 18 years ago, which is also hard to believe, she and I had a lovely conversation over the phone before my first rehearsal about our plans to go forward with the music program, what we might change, what we might keep. At the time, there was only the choir. It was just Phyllis, the choir, and Donna Simonton, and we had some interim music directors in between. And I will never forget her sensitive, sweet, and friendly demeanor and manner that she has. If you've ever talked to Phyllis or met her, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This has always been her MO, and I've been so fortunate to have a musical partner on staff who is so collaborative, flexible, collegial, and deeply committed to her job. And that it by all means makes my job so much easier and provides me with the space to focus on other elements that are required to keep a church music program running. One of the common models for directing a choir is where one person leads from the piano or organ, in a traditional, say, like a Christian church or whatever, and they do everything, right? I have always been fortunate to have Phyllis as a separate staff person to take care of most of the instrumental playing, while I can focus my attention more on shaping the sound of the choir with my gestures and rehearsing and giving notes and that sort of thing, and she works with me to give the notes to the choir. This is often considered a luxury, the model that we have for most small to mid-sized churches. UUCSS has always been committed to having two separate staff persons at least the time when Phyllis joined in 1992. This provides so many possibilities, as we've all seen and heard over the years. As an aside, I'll also mention that 1992 was right around the time when this sanctuary was built. A ground was being broken. And so she has been in this lovely space and maybe did a little bit over there, I don't know. But this has always been a beautiful space for her to play in. It had to have been really exciting for her when she began the job, witnessing the glow of the natural light of the choir loft right there, and that new sanctuary smell, as we call it. The qualities that I love about Phyllis's musicianship and artistry are many, but the one most striking to me is what is called her touch on the keys. Her touch. To the non-musicians in the room, playing the piano may seem like it involves pushing buttons in the right time, in the right place, right? But the artistry comes when that touch translates to a player's signature tone that they have. Phyllis's tone and masterful use of timing and the sustain pedal brings me such joy to hear that all the time. I have always adored her sound from day one. Another gift she possesses is her wonderful ability to improvise. And some music is written in shorthand with only the melody. You'll see in some hymns that has only the melody and no piano part there. In other cases, no music is printed, and we have just lyrics, and she can just make music out of that. It's really amazing. Phyllis's long background and thorough training in organ performance from the prestigious Oberlin College back many years ago in Ohio, that's where that is, equipped her to deal with all of these challenges. And she has also put that skill to use to great effect in her collaborative plays with her husband and poet Bill Stanley. who many here have witnessed performing together with the two of them at the Sweet Treat fundraisers that we've had, that we no longer do now. But I was astonished when I first heard Phyllis playing completely from scratch anything that came to her head inspired by Bill's poetry. It was really amazing. Often quoting famous pieces of music or songs in very clever and subtle ways. Finally, what I enjoy most about Phyllis is her ability to handle most situations with grace and good humor. That's what I really love. Phyllis, I have treasured all our many conversations about music, about life, and our general navigation of the challenges that this job continually throws at us. I am so grateful and indebted to you for the possibilities that you've opened up for me. And all of us here at UUCSS feel the same way in the many interactions that we have with you. And as thanks, I want to offer you some gifts from me and our music committee to express our deepest appreciation for all that you do for our church community. So will you come and join us down here at the Joys and Sorrows mic? And could I have the members of the music committee come up and assist me with the gifts, wherever they may be? I'll be right back. Does anybody have a knife? Didn't realize that it was closed on. Perfect. Look, this guy right here is always equipped. There was a generation that did this. And my generation, the Gen X, really cut that off. We stopped doing that. I feel. Some people, if they were in the military, maybe. So, okay. I did that successfully without cutting my finger. So there you go. I'll let you disengage that. So our first big gift that we have is a really nice soapstone chalice that she can use maybe on the mantle or something. Let me see if I'm hoping that it doesn't take too much time to get this off. So they wrapped it. Here's the top, the bowl part, the bowl portion, and apologies for moving this. There we go. Voila. So you can light it here, or you can do it this way, or add the bowl to that. So I want to present this lovely chalice to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. To always remember us, or to think of us when you're not at the church, you know. So, and we have some flowers. So, some lovely flowers for you. And then our third gift will be, well, there's two more, in the form of a commemorative video at the end of the service during the postlude. And then there will be cupcakes downstairs. I've got 50 gourmet cupcakes, but I'll cut them in half to make that 100. How does that sound? So join us downstairs. There are 2 tables down there. I know it's raining, so we can just sort of try to be as safe as we can and distant and whatever we need to do. But there are some treats down there. Thank you, Phyllis. Let's have another round of appreciation. And another hug from our minister.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Oh, you're welcome.
So, I don't know that it happened this way, but I do know that it's true. That long ago and far away, or maybe recently and quite nearby, a church was having a multi-generational art hour. And sitting next to each other were two people I'm going to call Carol and Alex. Carol because that was both of my grandparents' name and I like it, and Alex because it seems just like a nice gender-neutral name for this child. So Carol and Alex are sitting together at this art hour, and the assignment they'd been invited to this time was to decorate paper hearts to represent their own hearts. So Alex was working carefully away at this project, adding bright colors and glitter to make their heart as perfect as they could. Oh, thank you, Reverend Kristin. So shiny and bright, and then they looked over at Carol's heart. And it was covered in scraps of paper, and there was even like ripped pieces of paper, and there was a giant hole in it. And Alex says, "Oh no, Carol, what happened to your heart? Did you mess up? Do you want me to go get you a new one?" Sometimes when I make mistakes, I like to start over. And Carol laughed gently and said, "Oh, but Alex, the assignment was to create paper hearts to represent our real hearts." So I was thinking about, as I was making my heart, all the people who have left pieces of themselves with me and all the people who I've given bits of my heart to. So that's what all the different pieces of paper represent. And Alex says, "But what about the hole in your heart? There's a hole in your heart there, Carol." And Carol says, "Well, that represents all of the people that I have loved and given a piece of my heart to who have died." And Alex took a deep breath and thought about that, remembering the time that Alex's cat had died, was like, and they said, yeah, a hole in your heart, that feels about right. And then they just sat together for a minute looking at the two hearts on the table. And then Alex reached over and tore off a piece of their heart and handed it to Carol. And Carol did the same. And that is our story for today.
So it's now time for joys and sorrows, and I invite anyone who has something precious to share to come forward and speak into the microphone. Please be sure to say your name so everyone knows who you are, and to keep your sharing brief. After each person shares, please join me in saying, "In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief." And Preston, do you think you could help people light candles? Thank you so much. So I will begin by asking Preston to light a candle in memory of Marie Erickson, longtime member of UUCSS who died a week ago today. I did not have the privilege of knowing her, but I know that Marie was very loved by a whole lot of people in this room. May she rest in peace, and may all who grieve her rest in comfort and their good memories of her. In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief.
I have a quick joy. Today is the 70th birthday of my oldest sister, Margath. And she is not just my sister, but a dear friend. And I'm afraid to say I could never remember her birthday until 2001. As many of you know, the horrible event that happened on that day. And I was one of the few people who called her, and it was actually, I think I called her to she called to see if she was okay, and I said, "How are you?" And she said something about it being her birthday, and I was like, now I can remember it, but now it's a beautiful thing to remember on this day.
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief.
Good morning, I'm Jen, this is my husband Dave, and we won't be here next weekend because we're going to be celebrating our 10th anniversary. And we were married by Liz, and some of you were in that at our wedding, and just really happy to be celebrating 10 years.
You can light a candle.
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief.
I just want to follow up from Tina's statement that, 21 years ago, we were all very traumatized by the September 11th. But 17 years ago, I got a new perspective because today my son is 17.
You want to light a candle?
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief.
Hi. I'm Esther. I have a sadness that my brother Alan, who I didn't really know I had as a child, is suffering from stage 4 kidney disease, and he has other things going on in his body as well. And so he thinks he's going to get a kidney transplant, but I kind of doubt that. Anyway, I'm very sad and would appreciate your keeping him in your hearts.
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief. I have a few candles too.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and Phyllis Ryder asked me to come and share with you the news. I'll just read you the text she sent me this morning, that she got a note that Brother Toriel, who if you say who he is in a minute, at Virginia State, that there were gunshots outside his dorm, and then someone pulled the fire alarm, and it just cuts her in the heart, as well as probably many of us. So Toriel is one of the he's now a young man who is part of the Life Pieces for Masterpieces program that Phyllis is very involved with, that serves underprivileged young men and boys in DC. And we have supported the organization as well as Toriel, who sustained an assault just before he went to college. So I will have a card in the back after services for anyone who wants to sign that to show his support from us.
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief.
Hello, I'm Cease. This would have been a more impactful joy if I had not shared it with like 2 other people today already, but yes, today is also my dad's birthday, and I am very glad that it's been long enough since 2001 that I can forget his birthday again. That's a good feeling.
In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief. I also light a candle in memory of all who lost their lives as a result of the attacks on September 11th, 2001, those who died in the wars that followed. And we lift up the millions around the world whose lives have been forever impacted by the attacks and this country's response to them. Let us not forget that in every joy and sorrow, all are held in love beyond belief. And we light a candle for the Tanai family, whom this congregation has sponsored as they've begun their lives in this country after fleeing Afghanistan last year. Their kids, and they have come so far, just in the time that they've been here. Their kids have started school, the whole family has begun to learn English, and members of UUCSS helped move them into their home last spring here in Silver Spring. And they are just one of thousands of families. Their story is just one of thousands of stories, and it's been our privilege to be just a small part of that. Along with lighting our candle for them, we lift up their little little son who was just born a couple of months ago, Arsalan Tanai, who has been hospitalized in preparation for heart surgery next week. So let's all hold Arsalan and his family in our hearts and prayers. We asked if it was okay if we prayed for them, right? And I think that they would very much appreciate that for those who pray. So may all who carry joy feel the rest of us celebrating with you. May all who have shared sorrows aloud and those whose sorrows are too deep for words feel held in the loving kindness of this congregation and the love that never lets any of us go. There are so many joys and sorrows in this community, in our world, and they all bring up feelings inside of us. It's important to take time and space in the fullness of our lives to pay attention to what's happening inside of us. As we enter into a time of quiet together, to pay attention, to be here and now, let us remember, as my colleague Glenn Thomas Rideout says, the sound of babies and children in our midst is the sonic evidence of new life among us. If you have suffered a deep loss in the last year, I invite you to stand or raise your hand during the silence if you wish, so that the congregation can bear witness to your grief. Let us now enter into a moment of quiet together.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Breath of life, oneness in all and in whom all are one. God, whose other name is love. Breathing in, we give thanks for all of the new beginnings within and around us, for new school years, projects, and routines, for a new year of growing and learning here together at church. Breathing out, we lift up all in our lives who hold pieces of our hearts and our world who are suffering. May all beings everywhere be filled with loving kindness. May all beings everywhere be well. May all beings everywhere be peaceful and at ease. May all beings everywhere be whole. Breathing in, we lift up ourselves, our worries, our fears, our sorrows, our pains. When we miss the mark, when we aren't our best selves, when we carry resentment and anger, may we remember the power of saying sorry, making amends, and forgiving others. When the evils of the world bring us to despair, let us breathe out so we can breathe. So we can breathe in the hope and strength of the communities of faith, love, and hope that stretch back thousands of years, that hold us now, that will be here to hold our children's children long after we are gone. These things we pray in the name of all that we find holy. Amen, and blessed be.
I'm not sure if we have the lyrics for the children's recessional handy. I don't know if they can. Yes, there they are. Good. We haven't sung this as a congregation in a while, so we're going to reintroduce it, but we'll just go ahead and sing it through the normal way that we do, but I'll lead it from up here. So. Our time together is sacred. But now it's time to part, though we'll miss being together. You're always right here in my heart.
Our reading this morning is by the Reverend Elia Kemmler, who's minister of the First Parish Church Unitarian of Groton, Massachusetts. 6 weeks into the church year, I have realized that I am the minister of a church where things usually go wrong. This morning, the copy machine jams repeatedly. The bulletin describing the order of worship has been copied with the second page first and also upside down. No one has remembered to turn on the lights in the sanctuary before the service. We got it right. So it is dark because it is raining outside. The microphone is buzzing and lets out a painful, high-pitched squeal which makes people wince. We have just started the service when someone runs up with a bunch of flowers for the altar, just as someone else runs in with one of the silk arrangements we keep for the mornings when no one brings real flowers. There is laughter as the two flower bearers meet at the altar. They decide on the real flowers and things settle down for a while until the baby starts crying, which sets off another baby crying. I try to speak over the wailing as their fathers hustle them down the aisle and try to distract them in the back. Usually, I love watching the tall, gentle fathers who bounce their babies in backpacks at the rear of the sanctuary. But today, I am annoyed because I want to be quiet and holy and lovely, and things are definitely not shaping up that way. The woman who is helping with worship gets up and instead of giving the announcements, introduces the candle lighting time, which comes later. People call out, "Not yet!" More laughter, yeah. The organist starts playing the wrong hymn. That wouldn't happen here. And a couple of choir members yell over the din for him to stop. A few minutes later, during the period for prayerful silence, he accidentally falls onto the keyboard, causing the organ to emit horrible, gassy noises. Shrieks and snorts of laughter. All pretense of Sunday morning decorum is lost. And something inside me, some furious, bossy desire to have my worship service go according to plan, finally slides free, and I can laugh with them. This will be the first of many times that I laugh at Sunday morning details gone awry. It is also the first of many times that I imagine that God is watching, looking up or down or over or out at us from wherever God sits on Sunday mornings, slightly amazed and maybe at a loss for words because we, God's people, are so funny and wonderful and odd all at the same time. In moments like these, I imagine God as a sturdy old woman with her hands on her hips, or perhaps as a rabbi pulling on his long white beard. I imagine a God shaking his or her head and saying, "What in the world are they doing over there? This is what they call church? What are they thinking?" But I also imagine a God who is touched and maybe a little honored by our efforts, however halting, to worship and to give praise. I imagine a God who's moved by our attempts to care for one another and to name the things we know as holy. There is a warmth in this congregation that is new to me, a simple friendliness that shines through the fumblings and failures, a love that makes the ragged edges smooth. I've always wanted to believe, really believe, that our mistakes aren't the most important parts of us. I've always wanted to believe that kindness and compassion matter more than anything. I sense that I can learn this here. Here ends the reading.
Believe it or not, I don't remember many sermons. I remember some that I've given and the gist of a handful I've heard over the years in seminary and at church conferences. I remember the way some sermons made me feel and some of the things they've inspired me to do or stop doing. But when I think about why church has been important for me, why it's so important to me with my family, sermons don't even make the short list. I feel similarly about religious education classes. I know all of the different curricula the UUA offers. I'm especially passionate about the importance of the Our Whole Lives Comprehensive Sexuality Program, yes, created in partnership with the United Church of Christ. And I grew up at a UU church not far from here with a wonderful religious education program. And we went almost every single Sunday, every single week of my life through the end of high school. But when I think about why church is important to me, why it's important to my family, our classes are not at the top of the list either. When I think about what is most important to me about church, about faith community, a lot of memories come to mind. Like the first time my parents and I visited the church that would become our own. I was 8 years old, and I still remember walking through the hallways of the religious education classrooms on the ground floor as we made our way up to the sanctuary. The bathrooms were kid-sized. The water fountains were set at a kid's level, and I remember the way those things made me feel, like this church wanted me there. I remember the Reverend Ken McLean shaking my hand and saying how glad he was that my family and I were there. No minister had ever even looked me in the eye before that moment. And I remember that we sang Morning Has Broken that Sunday because I leaned over when it started and I said, Mom, they know Cat Stevens here. I'm dating myself. What I felt that very first time I visited my home church was a sense of welcome, of belonging. Now, this is something we teach about in religious education and something I have preached, I have no idea how many sermons about over the years. But learning in a classroom about the theology of welcome or learning stories in a sermon about why we should be welcoming is no substitute for experiencing welcome in community firsthand. I also remember the first time my husband, Kristin, and I went to a clergy meeting together after I'd given birth to our first child. CJ couldn't have been more than a month old, and I was having all of the first-time parent of a newborn feels. When it came time to break into small groups, Kristin took CJ so I could have the luxury of being by myself. Once my small group was done, I went to relieve Kristin only to find out he was doing just fine. In fact, the colleagues in Kristin's group were passing baby CJ around, using him as a makeshift talking stick. It was the first moment I felt really held and supported by my colleagues as a parent. It was awesome. It was a moment of not feeling isolated and alone anymore. And no church, no seminary class or sermon about the theology of love and support and compassion could hold a candle to actually experiencing my faith community, holding my family up during such an intense time. I think of another time my next baby was born. This is an experience of learning about flexibility in religious community, the importance and what a blessing it can be to be flexible. Baby John was a newborn, and I was serving a tiny congregation at that time. So tiny, in fact, that often the people who were supposed to volunteer or work in the nursery didn't come. And because of the 2-adult rule, anytime we have children, that's something we do in order to keep adults and children safe. The member who coordinated all of the nursery care would bring baby John into the sanctuary, and he would coo every time he heard my voice. And when she got tired of holding him, the congregation would just pass him down the pews while I was preaching. And at first I felt really guilty about it, like my congregation, was having to do childcare for my child. But people kept coming up to me and telling me how much they loved it and appreciated it. And so I started calling it my baby ministry. So any of you who have young children and babies know that their presence among us is a ministry. It is a ministry. It is evidence of new life among us, and it's such a blessing to have them with us. So many of you here today have shared your own stories with me, stories of how this congregation or another didn't just offer you a class about our values, didn't just invite you to a service about our faith, but showed you our values and our faith in a concrete way. These are the kinds of experiences that make church important to me, that make me want to raise my children in religious community, that make me hope liberal religious community is still around when my babies have their own babies. It's the power of these experiences that led me to become a minister. These experiences are also why UUA staff member Connie Goodbread developed the following phrase: faith development is all we do. Unitarian Universalism is all we teach. The congregation is the curriculum. Earlier this morning, we kicked off our religious education program for the church year. We had classes for elementary, middle, high schoolers, as well as adults. There were 17 people crammed in my office for UU History this morning. It was awesome. It was wonderful. And I know that the RE program is a big part of what brings a lot of people to UUCSS. But religious education, the actual process of nurturing people's spirits and character and growth, this is not something that only or even primarily happens in a classroom. It happens throughout the whole congregation. It happens in every impression we give, every interaction we have, in every choice we make about this community. The congregation is the curriculum because everything about our congregation communicates what we value and believe. Some of our curriculum as a congregation is explicit. The 8 principles, our covenant, which we have framed and hung on the wall, the mission and vision statements we will revisit later this church year, the statements of welcome on our website and in our written materials, explicit messages about our beliefs and values are important. But just as the spirit of the law is more powerful than the letter, the implicit curriculum, or the ways we live out our beliefs and values, are far more powerful and testify far more powerfully. This congregation's implicit curriculum is made up of our norms and regular practices. It's how children and youth are welcomed and involved, how leaders are chosen and developed, how much we do or don't tolerate when people break our covenant. It's whether we get mad or we laugh when things go wrong. And then there's the congregation's null curriculum. The null curriculum is what isn't there. The absence of certain words or symbols, the lack of creed or dogma, but it also includes things like the lack of wheelchair access to certain buildings, or when there aren't any open parking spots or seats left in the sanctuary on a Sunday morning. The absence of things often communicates more about a community than the things that are present, whether in positive or negative ways. The congregation is the curriculum. Unitarian Universalism is all we teach. Faith development is all we do. And just as it takes a village to raise our children, it takes a village to support people of all ages and help them learn and grow. Spiritual growth and the never-ending search for truth and meaning are so important in our faith that they make up our 3rd and 4th principles. And if growth and the search for truth are that important, then religious education is just as important for adults as it is for kids. And if the congregation is the curriculum and everything we do teaches our faith, then worship is just as important for kids as it is for adults. This is a big part of why we are trying out a new Sunday morning schedule here at UUCSS this year, with religious education for everyone at 9:30 and worship at 10:30. I know after 2 pandemic years, most of us are looking forward to a lot of things hopefully going back to the way they were. And in some ways, I hope that's true here this year. But the world has changed in the last 2 years, and so have all of us. Inevitably, some things will be different. Worship, religious education, other programming, and the way we schedule it may all evolve. There will be pieces you like and pieces you don't. But through it all, we will be learning and growing together as our own people and as a congregation. This morning, as a way to honor this new approach we are trying with RE, I want to leave you with some powerful words by Unitarian theologian William Ellery Channing. They are about the purpose of religious education, and I've amended them so they aren't just geared toward children, but toward all of us. He writes, "The great end in religious instruction is not to stamp our minds upon others, but to stir up their own. Not to make them see with our eyes, but to look inquiringly and steadily with their own. Not to give them a definite amount of knowledge, but to inspire a fervent love of truth. Not to form an outward regularity, but to touch inward springs. Not to bind them by ineradicable prejudices to our particular sect or peculiar notions, but to prepare them for impartial, conscientious judging of whatever subjects may be offered to their decision. Not to burden the memory, but to quicken and strengthen the power of thought. Not to impose religion upon them in the form of arbitrary rules, but to awaken the conscience, the moral discernment. In a word, the great end is to awaken the soul, to excite and cherish spiritual life. May it be so, and may we make it so. Amen.
I invite you now into this congregation's weekly practice of generosity. Each year, we invite everyone who calls this church their own to make a financial commitment for the year ahead. Some of us set up auto pay online, others send in checks through the mail. But we still give and receive an offering each week. We do this because generosity is a spiritual practice, something important enough to include in our worship each week. Most other places in our lives are transactional. We pay money and receive a good or service. But here at UUCSS, we don't charge people to come to worship. This community is possible because of your generosity and the generosity of all those that went before us. If you're new to UUCSS, the screen is showing you different ways you can make a gift if you wish. But if this is your first time with us, please know your presence here is gift enough. Those here in the sanctuary can also place an offering in one of the offering plates as it is passed around. The offering will now be given and received with gratitude.
Away.
My name is Tamara Bowman, and I'm a member of the board. My pronouns are she and hers. Our church is not only the organization that puts together these services, we are an engaged community of volunteers and staff, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and a part of the global UU faith. Today we have 3 announcements. Our first announcement is about our annual Catoctin trip. Members and friends of the congregation meet at a camping facility in the Catoctin Mountains for a weekend full of nature, games, good eating, and fun. This year's trip is happening September 23rd through 25th, and the cost is $50 or less per person, depending on how many people register. The deadline to register for the Catoctin trip is almost here. Everyone, including those who already emailed to express interest in the trip, need to officially register by this Thursday, September 15th. Check your inbox for the all-church email with the link to sign up. Our second announcement is about coming of age. I'm glad to announce that we will offer the Coming of Age program for teenagers in 9th and 10th grades this year. Yes, ooh is right. This program is an opportunity for youth to develop deeper relationships with one another, with adult mentors, to learn more about our Unitarian Universalist faith and begin to articulate their own beliefs. The Coming of Age class will be held on Sundays after the worship service, beginning next month. The exact start date is still being decided, and we will send out an all-church email with sign-up information this week. So if you'd like your 9th or 10th grader to be part of this program, be sure to sign them up. If you have questions, please find Reverend Caitlin after the service or email her at amsg@uucss.org. Finally, everyone please mark your calendars because we are going to hold some focus groups about the future of UUCSS on Sundays after worship. The 3 main focus groups will be held on Sunday, September 25th, October 2nd, and October 9th. There will be other focus groups held on days that aren't Sundays, but we figure those will be the most convenient for a lot of people. We will provide light snacks and refreshments and extended nursery care, and each focus group will only take an hour. We hope everyone will make it to a focus group because we want to get everyone's input about the future of the congregation. There will be a lot more information in your inboxes soon, but again, please plan to try to join us on September 25th, October 2nd, or October 9th. Thank you.
Please join me in the words of Chalice extinguishing. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. And you're going to lead our closing hymn. Great.
Will you rise in body or in spirit? We'll sing again number 301. We'll hear it once all the way through before we do all 5 verses.
Touch the earth and reach the sky. Walk on shores while spirits fly. Over the ocean, over the land. Our faith, our quest to understand. Touch the earth, reach the sky. Children ask the reasons why in our lives.
Faith development is all we do. Unitary, everything we teach is Unitarian Universalism. The congregation is the curriculum. Our worship has ended, and now our service begins.
Dear Phyllis, thank you for 30 years of service to UUCSS with grace and good humor and flexibility and most of all, artistry. We love you and we look forward to many more years of making musical memories together.
Phyllis, thank you so much for your years of service at UUCSS. It's such a joy to your beautiful playing in the choir. You've brought us beauty and joy over and over again, and inspiration. Thank you, and look forward to more years together. Bless you.
Hello, Phyllis. It's been wonderful working with you and knowing you over the last 25 years, and I hope we have many more years to go.
Hi, Phyllis. Hey, thank you so much for all the work you've done for us at UUCSS. I really enjoyed your solo playing, and of course, all the accompanying of the choir, and accompanying me and other soloists on other occasions. You've always been super professional and a delight to work with. Thank you so much.
Thanks for gifting us for 30 years. You've been awesome at playing, but I honor you for the other gifts you brought us, like the auction events you've offered, and I also have fond memories of working with you as your worship associate. You gave a sermon 10 years ago about your spiritual journey. You're much more than just dedicated to us through your gifted piano playing. Your sermon was chock full of great stories, wisdom, and humor. And I don't have time to tell you any stories, but if you're willing to share the draft of your sermon from August 18th, 2013, so others who weren't there could read it, then please do. I do not regret reading it, and neither will anyone else. Thank you for giving us all of you, all these years.
I want to thank you, Phyllis. Thank you so much for 30 wonderful years of support for UUCSS and the music program. We love you.